NFL draft storylines. Is the 2024 quarterback class over criticized? We have some thoughts. We're going to talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I am a senior draft analyst. And guys, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being out every day. And you know, I got to kick this intro to my guy, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez. Yes, the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. Where we talk draft strategy, we talk draft philosophy, we talk draft prospects. This is the number one source for everything NFL draft content. DP, we are talking quarterbacks, man. It's 2024 class, right? 8-9 months ago, this was the best quarterback class of all time. Now we're talking about Caleb Williams, right, holds on to the football too much. Drake Maye, should he be drafted in the first round? JJ McCarthy, he doesn't have enough game film out there, and everybody's just being real critical of these quarterbacks. So we're going to talk about, hey, is this class over criticized? Then we're going to compare this 2024 class to the 2021 class in DP. I'm going to throw in the 2020 class also, and then we're going to rank some quarterback landing spots as far as what's the best situation for these quarterbacks to go into. So this is a quarterback heavy conversation, but this is a really good conversation because we're going to provide some in-depth context to the quarterback position, draft prospect wise, and just how do these guys be successful moving forward. But DP, before we get into this conversation, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The 2024 NFL draft class, Keith, seems to be one of the more polarizing ones that we've encountered over the last 5 to 7 years, where walking into the season after summer scouting, it was two guys at the top of the mountain. It was Drake Maye and it was Caleb Williams. And it was the debate. Even I was on record on this pod, Keith, saying that the gap wasn't that far between the two. Then we get through the season and we see, dare I say, a Joe Burrow-esque type of rise from a Jayden Daniels. We see the rise of J.J. McCarthy. Bo Nix and Michael Penix as seniors stepped up to the plate as the veterans and handled their business, right? Spencer Rattler had a good season on a lackluster unit and team with South Carolina. But when you look at the narratives, right, it seems like everybody, and maybe it's just the time of the draft, we're a week and some change out, everybody's picking these kids apart, these young men, I'm sorry, but it's Caleb Williams. He paints his fingernails, Keith. He had a pink phone at a women's basketball game, watching Juju Watkins and all, watching those young ladies go out there and ball during the NCAA tournament. Drake Maye is either Josh Allen or insert another toolsy quarterback, but man, he could be the biggest bust of the draft. JJ McCarthy, as you said, hasn't played enough, and was Michigan afraid to let him throw the ball? And is Jayden Daniels just a flash in the pan?
Is he Lamar Jackson? Right, is he Lamar Jackson or is he Marcus Mariota? Right, and that has been the conversation. So let's start at the top. Is it over criticized? I'll say yes, DP. And we kind of had this conversation, a little bit, off air and stuff like that. And I think it's over criticized is because we're breaking down different elements, right? And we're watching the details. But I'll say this, like even with quarterback play, but. And I think because it varied, right? Caleb Williams didn't have the same year that he had the year before, right? Drake Maye didn't have the same year that he had the year before. Jayden Daniels elevated himself, right? But there's still a lot of question marks because we remember the year before and how there were some ups and downs with his play. And then J.J. McCarthy just simply, the times he just didn't throw the football, right? And his team won. So I do believe it's over criticized because that even in the NFL, DP, NFL quarterbacks, their play varies, right? We're talking about probably 5 guys in the NFL where consistently you know what you're going to get. But remember the day DP where Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate, and then you fast forward 1 year later, right? And now some guys are like, that wasn't good at all. Remember Dak Prescott was the worst quarterback in the NFL because he threw 15 interceptions. Then the very next year, DP, he was in the MVP race, right? So quarterback play varies from year to year, even in the NFL. So when we're projecting these guys, I look at it from the perspective of maybe it makes me a little bit more comfortable because I'm seeing the full picture, right? I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly versus certain situations where you've only seen the good, right? When we talk, and we'll get into the 2021 class and the 2020 class, but there have been other instances, DP, where we've only seen the good from quarterbacks, and it potentially has led us, down the rabbit hole of potentially missing on quarterbacks and not being able to properly project them.
No, okay, I'm with you. I think it is very much over criticized. Like, and I'm gonna tell you where I think it stems from, Keith. Last year, and this is the question I asked myself is, what did we learn from 2023's class, right? What did we learn from the Bryce Young treatment, where there were people poking holes in Anthony Richardson, people were poking holes in CJ Stroud, but Bryce was the guy that outside of his size, people didn't really have anything negative to say. It was like, oh, if anybody's going to be a good NFL quarterback out of these 3, it's got to be Bryce. And then we see what it looked. We never asked the question, what would it look like if it goes wrong? Like, what can he do if things aren't on time? He doesn't have a bunch of separators. Don't get me wrong, Justin Fields is not viewed highly as a passer, right? But he's been on some terrible teams in Chicago. No, run game was him. No offensive line, no receivers. But what was he able to still do? Elevate everything around him with his rushing ability. And I feel like people are now looking at this class like, well, we didn't criticize Bryce. We didn't criticize this quarterback in the past, like Trevor Lawrence. He was generational. Keith, if you dared utter a word on Twitter, or as we call it X now, that anything negative about the game of Trevor Lawrence, the prospect, you were immediately deemed a hater by either a fan or a media member. People were just, and don't get me wrong, I still think Trevor Lawrence is a really good and talented player and quarterback, but that's what I think is happening. It's a lot of revisionist history. It's a lot of, okay, I was wrong about this guy, so maybe I need to take a deeper stab, and now I need to be overcritical of this class. Don't get me wrong, some of the criticism is fair. Does Drake Maye have some poor footwork and poor mechanical habits? Absolutely. Is it correctable? Yes. Does it need to be corrected like early in his career? 100%. You don't want that to linger on into years 2 and 3, because then once it gets to there, it's very difficult to shift that and change that, right? But I dare anybody go watch I don't like to throw that out there, like the Josh Allen stuff. Go watch Josh Allen at Wyoming. Even watch his pro day, like the way he threw the ball, and then compared to what he's doing now, he's completely revamped his throwing mechanics. So while I get like the JJ McCarthy stuff, I totally understand it, right? Like you got questions of why didn't Michigan let them throw the ball more? Well, I mean, that's just the way that Jim Harbaugh. It's the way that we're looking at Jim Harbaugh going to Justin Herbert. Like, are we going to get the previous years of Justin Herbert, or are we going to get J.J. McCarthy version of Justin Herbert? So I do think this class is severely over-criticized because of just the way everyone, the media, the fans, even the NFL has treated previous classes, and now we're trying to overcorrect with this one.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that being the case. And so, DP, we about to transition right now, man, so we can immediately jump into the next conversation. And I'm going to start it off at the top when we transition, because I have just one point I want to make. But what we're going to do is compare this 2024 class to the 2021, and we're going to transition into what we believe, DP, is about landing spots, right? It's about where you go in the situations that surround us. So we're about to continue this really good conversation and get in depth with it. So coming up next, man, we're comparing the 2024 class to the 2021 class in regards to quarterbacks.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How's your social battery right now? Are you bursting with energy? Are you kind of lackadaisical? You're drained? I can tell you for myself, guys, we are literally a week and couple days away from the 2024 NFL draft in Detroit, which I will be there. We will be there. Yeah, I'm a little in between. I'm a little tired, but I still got a lot of energy because I'm excited to bring you guys the best NFL draft content possible. And guys, for me in the South, with spring stepping in and winter stepping out, it's easy to ignore our social battery and spread ourselves thin, especially with these social gatherings starting to pick up and ramp up. What's the right amount of socializing for you? How do you recharge? Maybe you thrive around people, or maybe you need some time alone. The main thing here is you want to be the best version of yourself. So if you think about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Find your social sweet spot with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Tailor the tape, Keith. 2024 quarterback class compared to the 2021 class, Keith.
Yep.
And I have the guys that was drafted.
Yeah, I want to jump into this real quick, DP, just 45 seconds to a minute, right? When we had this conversation, I think that we ask ourselves the wrong thing, right? When we're drafting a quarterback, and you just made the point with Trevor Lawrence, right? We ask ourselves, hey, is this a generational quarterback, right? And we put the bar at that. And the truth is that if it's truly a generation, then it's only one of those guys, right? It's not a lot of them, right? What we should be asking ourselves when we're grading these draft prospects or these quarterback prospects, can I win a Super Bowl with him? That should be the threshold, right? Because if you draft a quarterback that you can win a Super Bowl with, right, whether he's the truck, trailer, or the hitch, right, then you put yourself in a good situation as a franchise now. Because I'm looking at it, DPS, we're talking about an era where Tom Brady has 7 of them, right? So over the past 20 years, he's taken a third of them out the way, right? Then you have your Peyton Mannings, obviously, your Drew Brees, but guess what? DP mixed in that. Nick Foles has a Super Bowl, right? Eli Manning has 2. Joe Flacco has 1. Russell Wilson has 1. Ben Roethlisberger has 2, right? You're coming off of Brad Johnson winning a Super Bowl. So the conversation should be, hey, can we win a Super Bowl with this guy? And then moving forward, how do we build our team to support this quarterback moving forward? And I think that's where you get into the over criticized part. It's like, hey, maybe Drake Maye is not Josh Allen, right? But when I see it, I see enough arm talent, DP, that this guy can be sufficient in the NFL. And if I have a good team around me, going to win a Super Bowl. And that's going to lead into our quarterback landing spots. But go ahead, DP, I know you was about to roll with the 2024 versus the 2021 class. Let's have that conversation.
Keith, we just mentioned Trevor Lawrence. In 2021, Trevor Lawrence was number 1. Zach Wilson went pick 2, second pick overall. The Niners traded up to 3 to get Trey Lance. Justin Fields with 11. Mac Jones went 15. I think it was Kyle Trask went in the 2nd round. Davis Mills went in the 3rd. Ian Book went into the 4th, right? And I think it was like Sam Ellinger in the 5th, on the 6th or something like that. Yep. And I believe that was also it was a 2022 class. We had Brock Purdy. That was a class from Kenny Pickett, those guys, or whatever. But yeah, when you look at that class, Keith, out of all these guys, who's still left on the team that actually drafted them, that started? Trevor Lawrence and Kyle Trask? You know what I mean? Maybe the rest of these guys.
I'm not even 100% sure.
Correct. I'm not 100% sure either. So it's like, and that class was so highly touted, Keith, compared to previous ones before it. Like, you had 3 quarterbacks in the top 3. You had 5 in the top 15 picks of that draft, Keith. So when you look at the 2021 class, because I know you want to invoke the 2020 class as well, which class would you prefer? Which class you think is a better class as prospects, 2021 or 2024?
Man, I think if you look at prospects, right, obviously Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to put the check mark as a prospect, right? Zach Wilson, in my opinion, had way too many question marks, right, to be able to regard going number 2 overall and then to the New York Jets, right? You got to be a grown man to go to the New York Jets, DP, to be able to take that thing over. You have to be a grown man. Trey Lance going to the 49ers, I like that fit as far as a prospect, but things became weird, right? As far as the Brock Purdy situation, it was probably a 1 in a million type situation. Who knows? Mr. Irrelevant is coming in here and it's going to lead this team to the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl, right? That's tough, right? That's tough to deal with. And then I'm going to just stay at the first round, Justin Fields and Mac Jones. I think both of those situations were bad situations for quarterbacks, honestly. Can I go to the 2020 class? I kind of want to make a point on that. So then you look at the 2020 class, right? If we're going to grade situations, Joe Burrow to the Bengals, right? Which historically wasn't a great spot, but that's Joe Shiesty, DP. That's Joe Cool. That's Joe Burrow. We I'm a little biased, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, but then we get the Tua Tagovailoa, we get the Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and Jalen Hurts. That's I'm gonna stop it right there because let's grade these situations. Like I said, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals would not deem that as a great spot, right? But Tua Tagovailoa, and this is why situations matter. Tua was on his way out of Miami, right? Let's be completely honest. Miami fans were not excited about what he was doing, but situations matter. You go get Jalen Wilder, you go get Tyreek Hill, and now we see a better prospect, right? We see more of what we've seen at Alabama. Now, he's not a perfect guy, but they are a playoff team. And like we told, the threshold is this. Can this guy potentially get us to the Super Bowl? The answer is yes, he can. Now, if you're talking about is he clutch and all of those other things, there's a million things that goes into it, right? But you built the roster and this guy gets you to the playoffs and you feel pretty decently confident saying that the Miami Dolphins are a threshold playoff team. Then I look at the Los Angeles Chargers, right? What did he had? He had two offensive weapons, right? He had Mike Williams, he had Keenan Allen, and he had Austin Eckler out of the backfield. Good pieces, DP, to kind of, be able to move it forward. And then you talk about Jalen Hurts. What happened with Jalen Hurts? Nick Sirianni lets him run the football, doesn't make him a pocket passer. Everything we criticized him for, saying you're not a good pocket passing quarterback. Nick Sirianni said, you know what? Don't worry about being in the pocket, right? Do what you do best, and he was able to get the best version of him. So I kind of wanted to just highlight that 2020 class because I do think, based off of situations, I think the 2020 class had better situations than what the 2021 class had.
No, I love that. And Keith, I think takeaways from me from looking at this 2020 class as you were rolling through it, and even back to 2021, the first overall picks in both years, right? Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. What separates them from Caleb? The one thing that separates them is the pedigree. They won. And they won on the highest of the biggest of stage, right? Both guys made it to the national championship before their careers were over in college. Both of them won the national championship. Joe Burrow had the historic undefeated season where they went through a gauntlet. You were there. Y'all ran through a gauntlet of teams. Trevor Lawrence being able to go to the national championship game against a Bama team and Nick Saban and Tua and everything, and to whoop them the way that Clemson did was unreal, right? Caleb doesn't have that. He doesn't have that winning pedigree to put on, to throw on his shoulders
on his resume. Yeah, he doesn't have on his resume. And I'll even go this when we talk about situations, DP, to kind of further that point. I looked at the Joe Burrow, right? But I mean, look at it. That was T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and then Jamar Chase. Like that, right. That's a really good offensive skill situation right now. Because you just
walking into that. I think Caleb might be walking to a similar situation with Chicago, if they do what we talked about on yesterday's pod, if they draft like Roma Dunze at 9, and now you really set him on kind of on that Joe Burrow, almost ahead of schedule for the Joe Burrow plan, because Joe Burrow had to slum it for like the first year until he could get Jamar Chase the following draft or so. Because remember, like the offensive line was bad, he was getting hit.
He was hurt. Remember, he was hurt. He had a torn ACL, I believe.
Torn ACL,
Yeah, so now it's definitely an interesting conversation to compare and contrast, right? We're talking about this 2024 class being over criticized. We're talking about, then the 2021 class, right? Which probably one of the all-time, not like it in revisionist history, looking at it now as it currently stands, right? Yeah. None of those guys' careers are over with, but right now it doesn't appear that it lived. Great, Keith. Yeah, it doesn't look
but
good.
As prospects, like they were good. They were good prospects. Like you said, the landing spots were bad. And Keith, I'll say this real quick. In my opinion, how I look at it I look at two names from the 2020 class. If Drake Maye goes to, let's say Minnesota trades up and get Drake Maye, I think he could have that Justin Herbert rookie year in Minnesota. But if you take the approach, Jordan Love, I can see J.J. McCarthy becoming a Jordan Love type of player.
Okay, that was the one guy that I didn't mention. I forgot to mention with the 2020 class, right? Was Jordan Love, him sitting down for a couple of years. And it goes to our point that DP is weak. I say I hate, but I'm gonna say I dislike. I dislike that we try to apply the one size fits all model to every situation, right? Or if you draft a rookie quarterback, you got to play him now. and who said that that's the recipe for success, right? Like and I don't get it, right? That why we think that there's only one way to go about this when we've seen other situations not work out like that. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, like we've seen not just like good quarterbacks, we've seen all-time great quarterbacks sit down. So why does he have to play immediately? Sit him down and let him make his mistakes. So we'll continue to have this conversation, but this is what I want to do, right? We talked about situations matter, right? We talked about the 2024 class being over criticized. So let's do it, DP. Let's tell the people, right? Let's go ahead, put it out here. What are the best landing spots for the quarterbacks for the 2024 class? So we're going to go ahead and rank them. We'll talk about the best spots and we'll talk about the spots that concern us. So coming up next, we're getting into the ranking the quarterback landing spots.
Guys, you shouldn't have to worry when you're trying to buy tickets to your next Major League Baseball game. And we know it can be frustrating, but let me help you. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Speaking of buying MLB tickets, this Friday, on the 19th at 7:20, the Atlanta Braves are hosting the Texas Rangers. And if you want to go see this game, you can go for as cheap as $34 a ticket on the Game Time app. Okay, so understand this, guys. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Ranking these QB landing spots, Keith, and when you think about the teams that need quarterbacks, Chicago Bears, Washington Commanders, New England Patriots, New York Giants are in there. The Minnesota Vikings, Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, right? Those guys are in that realm, Keith. When you look at, I did mention the Giants. When you look at those guys, what are the best, before we get to the worst, what are the best landing spots for a rookie quarterback for the 2024 NFL draft?
Yep, I'll say this. If I'm the agent of one of these quarterback outside of Caleb Williams, right, because you're going to Chicago, no matter what, right, and it's something just being the number one overall pick. But I'm on the phone with Minnesota, right? I'm not waiting for Minnesota to call me. I'm calling them. Hey, let's figure this thing out. I want to go to Minnesota. I think Minnesota is the best spot. You talk about Aaron Jones. You talk about Justin Jefferson. Talking about, TJ Hawkinson return. Hopefully he's, 100% healthy, and that's what we're going to predict this off of, right? And then you're talking about a Jordan Addison who shows that what we talked about. He can be a 1.5-ish type of wide receiver, right? So I think when you look at weapons, right, and plus the play caller, right, Kevin O'Connell really doing this thing. I think Minnesota is number one. Number two, DP, I didn't think I would say this a couple months ago, but it's Chicago. I'm going to go number two, Chicago. Obviously, the weapons there. And then I'm going to go number three. I'm going to go to Washington Commanders because they have a couple weapons and a couple building blocks moving forward. And then looking at the rest of this, I'm going to just go top three. I'm going to go top three because there's a lot of situations, to be honest, DP, I don't care for. I don't think they're great spots. So let's go top three. I'll go top three, then I'll name my worst situations also.
Keith, I'm going to take Chicago completely out of it because we know Caleb Williams going this. The rest of these guys have no shot, in my opinion. But they, like you said, they're top three for sure. So without Chicago, I'm going Minnesota at 1 without Chicago. Minnesota, I'm going to go Commanders at 2.
Okay.
I'm actually going to go Las Vegas Raiders.
Let's talk about that one. Why?
I like what they have there, right? I like Michael Mayer and what he brings as a tight end. This is a team that's going to run the football, so you're going to walk in because with Antonio Pierce there, they that fixture of the run game is going to absolutely be there, especially being one of the biggest helpers for a young quarterback. Devontae Adams being there, Jacoby Myers being there as well. Two legit.
I forgot about that.
A 1-2 punch.
Jacoby Myers,
what I mean? In that receiving room, whatever reason, the Hunter Renfrow thing they couldn't get him. It just didn't work out for them. But it would have been great to have him in the slot, with those guys. While Jacoby plays that Z and everything. I think the offensive line is solid. I think they do need to get I think it's a right tackle they need on their team right now. They got to upgrade the right tackle spot. I think offensive line wise is solid. I think the defense is coming along. With Antonio Pierce and with this defense that they have, kind of brewing. I just think that's a situation where you put a rookie quarterback in with that run game, with those weapons, you can still add. This is a loaded receiver group, so you can still add some more receiver talent in terms of taking the top off, explosive guys, stuff like that. I think with an accurate quarterback, I think Michael Mayer could at least get 800 yards. You know what I mean? With those two receivers flanking him, giving him that room to work in the middle of the field and a good volume of targets. I think this is a really good, really underrated landing spot for a young quarterback.
Okay, cool. And that made your top three, right? You went Washington.
I went Minnesota, Washington, and then Raiders.
Okay, yeah, and the Raiders are an interesting one because people talk about them trading up, to grab a quarterback. I forgot about the addition of the addition of Jacoby Myers. So we'll see about that. So DP, let's transition. Right, we talk about the good, we got to talk about the bad, man. The three spots that are the most concerning spots if I'm a rookie quarterback and talking about success. Number one, I'm gonna go to what you say?
No, you go ahead. I was about to list mine first, though. You go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna go. New England is number one for me, DP. And listen, it's a tight race, but I think New England has taken the cake. Offensive line questions, offensive philosophy questions, wide receiver questions, right there. The whole thing is just a question mark, right? And it's cold up there. Just the whole thing is a question mark. So I think if you're a quarterback, that is the most concerning spot. Number two, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, because I feel as though that I give them credit because they have Sean Payton, right? A great QB coach in that situation. But that offensive skill unit has been depleted so much, right? I think what KJ Hamler, he had the medical situation where he had to leave, right? They drafted the rookie from Oklahoma, Marvin Mims. They have Marvin Mims there. He's another smaller guy, but they don't have Jerry Jeudy anymore, right? So it's just so many different things, and they don't have a second round pick, I believe. So you have the first round pick. So if you go in the first round there, don't have a second round pick, then he's like your next option, right, to grab another skill players in the third round. So I think that's the second spot that concerns me. Then third is the New York Giants, DP. And I just think they need more. You don't have Saquon Barkley anymore. There's offensive line questions where you're trying to fill the guard positions right, and then you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with Evan Neal. Then I think it's still an offensive philosophy, right? Like, what are we going to do? We have wide receivers, but we have Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt, who are smaller-bodied wide receivers, right? Where do we get that big guy from? And then it's the same type of situation, right? You go quarterback in the first round, then who are we going to take in the second round that we feel really comfortable being an X wide receiver? So I'm going to go Giants at number 3. So my list was Patriots, Broncos, Giants.
So mine is it's the same teams. I got a different order. I got the Broncos at 1.
Okay.
I do not like this roster at all. It's like, and I wonder, and you mentioned like Sean Payton's a good coach, really good coach, winning coach. But I wonder, like, post Drew Brees, I've seen him, I'm not going to say lose it, but it's just some concerning things there. Treating Taysom Hill and getting Taysom Hill a contract and trying to make us believe he was a quarterback. You know what I mean? That he could play and start 16, 17 games in the regular season. You can win with him. I wonder how patient he is, and where he is now, like what mentality, attitude, is he with the team that they have now? Is he a good landing spot for a rookie quarterback? Right. Mm-hmm. So, and then again, I think, even though got Marvin Mims, the tight end position is a problem. Are they going to be able to run the ball effectively? Where I look at New England, they're going to be able to run the ball effectively. They got to get a left tackle situated, because I believe they brought back Michael Winnahue to play the right tackle spot. They got to get that left tackle solidified, which they might do day 2. But I know with Ramondre Stevenson, they brought in Antonio Gibson. They'll be able to run the ball. They got good tight end in Hunter Henry. They have 3, 2, like maybe wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s, or whatever. But I feel like their receiver core, you just add a high end rookie in this group, and you're okay compared to whatever Denver has. So Denver's at 1. I got New England at 2, and then I do have the Giants at 3. The Giants, I think their receiver room is okay. But like I said, the offensive line. What are you gonna do with Neal? What are you gonna do on the interior? No Saquon. You brought in Devin Singletary. Can you really run the rock through him the way you were able to do with Saquon. I don't know. Darren Waller was contemplating retirement. There was a lot going on in the Big Apple.
It's still a lot going on.
Still
DP.
a lot going on.
Still
So I
a
do
lot
think
going on.
we got the same teams. I just have Denver at the top. I think Denver is a team that, in my honest opinion, as we always talk about, don't draft a quarterback until you're ready. And Denver, to me, is the furthest away. So I say you improve this roster, you know what I mean, and do what you got to do. Maybe trade back, get an extra second-round pick or extra first next year. Do some things to improve this unit, and then go get you a quarterback in 2025.
Yo, with DP, listen, man, I think that wraps up the context, right? Providing context for these quarterbacks, like we said, man, the threshold should not be, is this a generational quarterback, but is he a good prospect? Every single prospect, every single NFL player has flaws, has holes, right? So watch the film and let's grade these guys on, hey, do they have the ability to win in the NFL? And then high of a level, can this guy get my team to the playoffs? Can this guy get my team to the Super Bowl? Because I think that a lot of stuff gets lost in that context, right, of just putting the threshold at Tom Brady, can he win the 5-6 Super Bowls? So, DP, that wraps up another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man, where we are the number one source for everything NFL draft content. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Listen, man, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there, that is my co-host, my guy, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episodes as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And tomorrow's show, guys, we're going to have perfect fits and everything. So we have much more. We're getting more and more closer, inch by inch to the 2024 NFL Draft class. So you know what I like to tell you. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.